Now we're going to start a very interesting part here called CSS, and the HTML tags are almost over. There are a few tags, a few features left that I will explain after CSS. Now CSS is a huge part, and CSS makes it more professional. Now just with HTML, a lot can't be done, and maintaining a page is really tough without CSS. Now, those tags and features that I spoke about explaining later in the HTML, those are a bit complicated and would make more sense if you understand what CSS is. Now, when it comes to CSS, there are like 3 ways you can actually include CSS in your project. Now, let's say you have a table. Now, in the table, you set the border is 1 pixel solid with 50% and the border spacing is 0 pixels. This is that. For time being, what I'll do is I'm going to add this here. Now this is a table. If you see, you have like 2 tables here. There's one table with the border spacing of 0 pixels, and there's another table which has border but no border spacing. Now the style have been mentioned within the tags itself. This is what is called as inline CSS. Now I could use this over here. You see, it doesn't make any difference. Now, instead of keeping it over here, I placed it at a common place. Now, I can add as many tables I wanted in this page, and that will all apply this style. Now I'm saying table, all table should use this style. So the first table that you see, I didn't mention any style over here. So it is using this style. This table is using this style. At the same time, look at it. Here, the border seems similar to this. Why is that? I'll try to get a background color. See, the background color is applied to the first table as well as the second table, meaning whatever style I mentioned here, this is called the internal CSS. So inline CSS is something that you mention in your tag itself. Internal CSS is something that you mention inside the head tag. And the internal CSS overrides the inline CSS. So no matter what you do here, it has been override by the style that you mention in the internal CSS. Now let us try this. I'm gonna do a background color here which says red. Oops, I said the other way around. Now, what I was trying to say is anything that you mention here. So the table is being applied on all the table that you have here. But the inline CSS, the inline CSS will actually supersede or override the internal CSS. There is a reason for that. Now this becomes very generic, right? The table tag that you have here, it's become generic because whichever table that you're going to add in the HTML document, it is all gonna use the style. But when you make it more specific, not generic, because this is generic and this is very specific. So when you make it more specific and you keep it narrowing it down to that specific table, you say that background color is red. Now, this style is obviously going to be applied on this table and this table. But since there's nothing to overwrite from this table, this style is being taken as it is. But here, even though there is a style for this table, because that table is very generic, this background color red is very specific to this table because this is an inline CSS. So the inline CSS always overrides the internal CSS. Now we'll look at something which actually helps you a lot in terms of maintaining multiple pages. Now I'm going to add a new CSS file. Let me save this. So styles.css is what I'm trying to say. Now in the styles.css, I'm going to say table background color should be black. And trying to link that. This was not applied at all. Now let me try something over here. Font color. Font color is basically color. Say the font color is red. Oops, the location is wrong. The location is right. Okay. Now let's look at this. The background color is black now. Let me close this tag. Okay. So the external is more generic. Now external, this is external CSS. Let's say you have like 10 web pages and all the 10 web pages have to use the same style. So it makes better if you have it in an external file and include it like this. Now when you include it like this, the external CSS is applied here. Now that's what is happening here. But if you look at it, the external CSS has low priority. This is what gets applied here. Now you could see background color is black here, but the background color is aqua here. So for the first table, aqua is what is being applied because this has more power and more priority than an external. So inline has the highest, the next would be internal, and the third would be external. So that's how the priorities are arranged. Now, and that's how the override happens. Now, let's look at the second table. But before we go through, the color is red. That's what we see for the first table too. For the second table too, the color is red. But the second table since inline, I'll try to change to a different color. Since this is already a background color mentioned, so this is very specific, and this is a little generic, and this is more generic. So whichever is very specific, that has been applied. Now we saw something earlier. That is something I'm going to try it again. So I'm going to keep this link after this style. Now let's see what happens if I do that. Now this style, right? See, whatever information or whatever external link that you do through this link, whatever document it may be, when it is fetched into this document. So this style is tried to be applied first, and then this style is loaded. So if you look at it, this link, all it does is pretty much loads this here. Okay, just think of it in that way. So even though black was already there, since the background color, okay, since the background color is aqua here and this background color is black, this table is overridden by this table, because what happens is the order in which the properties are loaded, that's what makes sense. So but when this is loaded, right, it is also considered like internal CSS. So if this comes first and this next, this will override this table. But if I copy this above the style, this will override the external CSS. So in short, I should say that inline CSS overrides everything, then the internal CSS, and then the external CSS. But if the internal CSS falls above the external CSS, then I mean, just think of it, right? I mean, it's like the table being copied here. So first browser reads this, and then the browser reads this again. So the browser understands the background color is black, so it applies a background color as black here. So that's how it works, and that's how these CSS are really helpful. The external CSS is the best thing to use, and that's the best practice. Never think about having a internal CSS or inline CSS. We'll see more on these overrides and what takes priorities, all that in the upcoming videos.